Hey friends, tonight we begin with something strange, if not quietly unsettling. Not a wedding crash this time, but something even more haunting. Imagine every breath you take, every bite you eat, every moment you rest, dictated by a man with a sword you're not even allowed to look at. That was life for millions in feudal Japan, and we're stepping into that world tonight. But before we wade through muddy rice paddies and listen to the silent fears of a peasant's life, do me a quick favor. Tap that like button and subscribe if you enjoy long, immersive stories that reveal the hidden struggles of history. And in the comments, tell me where you are listening from and what time it is right now. I love seeing how far these sleepy tales travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe grab a warm cup of tea, or put your phone on Do Not Disturb, because this quiet, slow-burning tale of rice, rebellion, and ritual is just getting started. Welcome to another long, soothing journey through the past. Tonight we drift into the mist-shrouded hills and muddy valleys of feudal Japan, where honor gleamed sharp as a blade, but only for a chosen few. You've heard the legends. Noble samurai beneath the drifting cherry blossoms, swords drawn with perfect grace. Yet far below that painted poetry lived millions who bowed their heads in silent submission. Men and women who never gripped a katana, only a hoe. Their stories etched not in elegant scrolls, but in the calloused lines of their palms. In this episode, we begin with those sweat-soaked rice farmers, taxed, watched, and punished as swiftly as a summer storm, bearing the heavy weight of the samurai dream. Then, slowly, we rise from the flooded paddies to the smoky war camps of one of Japan's most relentless visionaries, Oda Nobunaga. His meteoric ascent reshaped a nation, but exacted a fearsome price. Later, as the night deepens, we'll follow the haunting mystery of missing katanas, blades hidden with the dead, some burned, others stolen. Were they sealed away by ritual or taken in quiet revenge? And finally, we slip into silk-lined corridors to spend a single, hushed day with a noble samurai family, discovering that privilege, too, carries its own quiet burdens. So let your breathing slow. The rice paddies await. We begin in an age where survival meant obeying every rule, where one careless word could invite the sword. Close your eyes. Our journey starts now. Village on the edge of the province. Imagine a crooked line of thatched roofs, half lost in morning mist. You are standing on a narrow earthen path, no wider than a cartwheel, splashed with puddles from last night's brief rain. To your left, tiered rice paddies shin-deep in muddy water, reflecting a pale, rose-gold dawn. To your right, a small shrine gate, its vermilion paint flaking, where paper streamers flutter like sleepy moths. Somewhere unseen, a rooster croaks, as though reluctant to announce another day of toil. This is Katsura Hamlet, a speck on the map of Omi Province. 43 families, one Buddhist temple, one communal well, and at the crest of a distant hill, just visible through threads of fog, rises the white watchtower of a minor castle. It belongs to a samurai steward you have never met, though his taxes shape every hour of your life. You are 18, 24. Age is slippery here. Seasons blur memories. Everyone calls you Jiro, second son, because firstborns inherit what little there is. You have never traveled farther than the provincial market 2 valleys away. You have no surname. You have oaths instead. Obligation before sunrise. Inside your hut, The air is sour with last night's ash and the faint smell of pickled bacon. A single rush mat covers hard earthen floor. A thatched roof leaks in heavy storms. Your wife, Aki-san, is up already, coaxing rice chaff into a twig fire. Little Yon, your 3-year-old daughter, dozes beneath a patched quilt, thumb in mouth, hair sticking in soft spirals. An old, bent mother, hers, not yours, coughs quietly beside the dying embers. Every breath rattles like bamboo wind chimes. Breakfast is a ladle of millet gruel. Rice, the good polished rice, is counted, stored, and taxed away. You learned early. Eat millet, grow rice, surrender rice. You bow to the household altar. A chipped wooden Buddha flanked by wilted flowers. Mutter a morning chant, half-remembered sutras, and ask for gentle rains, docile samurai. And if it is not too greedy, 1 extra bowl of barley this winter. The first footsteps into mud. Your sandals are straw, braided by Aki-san in the dull dark of last night. They last maybe 10 days, then the cord snaps and you weave another pair. You shoulder a hoe with a cherry wood handle rubbed smooth by your father's hands. Its blade is iron, brittle with age, repaired more times than you can count. Down in the fields, frogs leap from your shadow. You step into water the color of weak tea. It is cool at first, then alarmingly cold. Underfoot, soft sludge sucking at toes, little shells biting like grit. A thin line of peasants stretches the paddies, bent silhouettes against the whitening sky. No one speaks. Talk wastes breath. You slip into rhythm. Lift blade, slice weeds, swirl mud, move sideways, repeat. Above, dragonflies hover like silent red lanterns. Social pyramid. A weight on the shoulders. The Sengoku period is an age of war without end. Daimyo clash like jealous gods. Castles rise and burn. Borders shift monthly. But peasants, hayakusho, rarely move at all. They are the soil, say the laws. Sever them from the land, and grain will not grow. Over you stand layers of authority. Village headman, Nanushi, elected yet cautious, a mediator who counts every sheaf. District magistrate, Shoya, often a low-ranking samurai with the right to confiscate land. Castle steward, Karo, remote, feared. His decisions arrive as sealed edicts. Provincial daimyo, whom you envision only by his banner. 2 silver gourds on black silk. Peasants pay. Samurai fight. Priests pray. Artisans trade. That is the order declared by heaven and enforced by steel. The kokudaka burden, tax, is measured in koku. Enough rice to feed 1 man for a year. Your village owes 37 koku this harvest. Last year, rains ruined half the crop. Still, the quota stood. 2 families fell into debt and sold their daughters to distant towns as servants. 1 old man hanged himself from a cedar after his son was taken as collateral for an unpaid levy. The rope mark stayed on the trunk all winter, dark as spilled ink. Twice a month, the tax inspector arrives. A samurai on a sweating horse, lacquer armor dusty, ledger tied to his side. Behind him march 3 Ishigaru with spears. They measure paddy depth, count seedlings, and demand tea. They speak politely, but never smile. Politeness delivered by someone who can order your beheading feels colder than the mountain wind. Rice, the god, and the prison. Rice is more than food, currency, status, tribute, and spirit. You scatter roasted rice in doorways at New Year to invite good kami. At funerals, a pinch of uncooked grain is tucked into the dead one's mouth. Last provisions for the long road. Yet you seldom taste white rice. At harvest, You may keep the imperfect grains, the broken, the discolored, called aremai. You mix them with barley, millet, and chestnut flour. Your body is lean, muscles ropey. Your teeth surprisingly sound. Coarse grains polish enamel. Still, hunger is a quiet predator. A tightening around ribs in February, a dizziness in March. By April's first buds, relief trickles in with wild herbs and bamboo shoots. A day in slow motion, hour by hour. Third hour, morning, approx. 8 a.m. The sun climbs, mist lifts, revealing distant mountains like blue ghosts. Sweat beads on your neck. A neighbor, Haida, works one paddy over. 2 summers ago, his wife died, birthing a still child. He still hums lullabies while weeding, unaware. You pretend not to listen. Middle of day, approximately 11 a.m. A break. You squat on a turf ridge, wipe mud with the back of a sleeve. Aki-san appears, balancing a wooden lunchbox. Inside, pickled plums, boiled greens, a salted sardine head, fish scraps traded from river folk. No words. She hands food, bows slightly, and returns uphill to spin flax. Marriage is less romance, more alliance against starvation. 7th hour, afternoon, approximately 1 p.m. Clouds gather, thunder rumbles faintly. You welcome rain if it is mild. Torrents wash seedlings away. You tie a straw cape over your shoulders, keep working. 10th hour, evening, approx. 4 p.m. The headman blows a conch shell. Work halts. Tools are rinsed, stacked in communal shed. Blades pointing inward, a rule. Outward is bad omen. You scoop water from the irrigation ditch, splash your face, and feel grit in your hair. Nightfall village paths glow with fireflies. Supper is miso broth, radish leaves, and barley. After eating, you sit by the doorway, carve a bamboo whistle for Yone. Across the lane, young men rehearse stick fighting, dreaming of conscription that might earn them a stipend of rice and, maybe, a surname. Law and punishment. The Buke Shohado, samurai house laws, spill downward as village edicts. No peasant may own a sword longer than 2 shaku, about 60 centimeters. No one may leave the province without travel papers. No roofs may be tiled. That luxury reserved for the warrior and the temple. Pilgrims found outside permitted festivals risk arrest as spies. Punishments are public. Kawaiagake, hanging upside down over a pit of excrement. Ishidaki, kneeling on triangular rocks for hours. Nailing, a hand pierced to a board at a crossroads with a placard of the crime. You have witnessed each, eyes lowered, but ears wide. Fear is part of the social glue, alongside rice-based mortar between wattle walls. Weather as judge. Late summer typhoons decide fortunes. A single storm can flatten acres, drown seedlings, and rot grain. Lightning once split the temple bell. Monks called it a dragon omen. Bandits followed 3 days later, stealing storehouse rice. The steward blamed lax prayers, raised taxes to fund shrine repairs. In winter, mountain wolves roam near, howling under snow light. You set covered traps baited with fish bones. Sometimes a raccoon dog blunders in. Its meat is stringy but welcome. Disease and medicine. The village medic is a semi-literate monk named Ryozin. He carries a lacquer box of powders. Ground licorice, bear gall, smashed pearl. He bleeds patients with bamboo slivers, or prescribes moxicons of mugwort burned on the skin. Fevers still carry children away. Pox leaves cratered scars. You chant sutras over the sick, burn incense that half chokes, half comforts. One spring, a cough swept Katsura. 15 died in 50 days. They were wrapped in reed mats, buried on a hillside facing east, to greet Amida Buddha's western paradise opposite. You remember the smell of wet earth mixed with ash. Festivals, moments of breath. 2 festivals break the monotony. Odawe Matsuri, Rice Planting Festival. Girls in bright red kusode sing while transplanting first seedlings. You watch from the ridge, muddy and mesmerized. Obon, Festival of Spirits. Paper lanterns float down the river carrying ancestors' souls. You bow as your father's lantern passes, hoping it does not snag on reeds. Festivals require sake. You brew sake from leftover rice bran. It's cloudy, sharp. That one night you laugh louder, sing old war tales you never fought. Next dawn, work resumes. Head pounding, heart oddly light. War on the horizon, trumpets echo from distant roads. Rumors of Lord Oda Nobunaga marching east. Samurai recruiters arrive, eyes scanning for stout youths. You are too vital to the fields. The headman hides you during counts. Yet conscription sweeps up your cousin, Saburo. He returns months later, missing 2 fingers, silent, carrying a coin stamped with Nobunaga's crest. He refuses to tell what happened at Kanegasaki. Spiritual armor, Shinto and Buddhism intertwine like vine and tree. You clap twice at the shrine, ring the bell, and bow deeply. At home, a corner shelf holds family tablets. Each morning you light a pine taper, place a grain of araimai as an offering. A tiny droplet of sake on the lips of your late sister, as wooden effigy keeps her spirit moist in the other realm. You're told, omens guide choices. A crow cawing east at dawn, good for transplanting. A snake crossing the path, postpone threshing. The snake is a messenger of Okuninushi. Your life is a dance of small fears and reverence. Family, gender, roles. Men labor fields, repair levees, and chop wood. Women transplant seedlings, weave hemp, brew soy sauce, and raise silkworms in attic trays. Children scare sparrows with clappers or chase frogs, future fertilizer. Marriages are arranged by go-betweens. Dowry may be a roll of cloth, a piglet, or a promise to help build a new granary. Love might bloom later, or not. Divorce is rare, shameful, but possible if no sons after a decade. Night stories and hope after supper. Villagers gather at the fire pit. Old Hachibe recites tales of dire ghosts still fighting phantom wars. He claims that once, while fishing at dawn, he saw armored spirits walking across mist, not wetting their feet. You half believe, half enjoy the chill. Dreams. You dream of owning one paddy outright, no tax marker in its corner. Of tasting pure white rice until stomach aches pleasantly. Of hearing your daughter read a poem one day. You know, most dreams stay dreams. Still, dawn will come, frogs will sing, rice will need tending. You will rise. Seasons turn spring, seedlings sprout, bright emerald squares quilt valley. Summer, cicadas scream, sweat stings eyes, leeches cling to calves. Autumn, golden heads bend heavy, threshing flails thud like distant drums. Winter, fields flood with silence. You mend nets, tell stories, ration miso. Year follows year. Rulers change banners. Castles burn and rise again. But Katsura Hamlet endures, anchored by muddy boots and patient hands. And so, under a sky thick with stars unseen behind storm clouds, Jiro lies on his mat, muscles humming with exhaustion. Tomorrow promises nothing new, only the steady rhythm of paddies, taxes, and hopes whispered to silent gods. Yet within that sameness glows a small ember of perseverance, one that will shape the fate of provinces when war drums roll closer. Breathe deeply. Let the cool night air of Omi province wash over you. You've just heard the story of a man who worked the fields, had bowed, body bent, living in silence beneath the boots of power. But now, we rise, up winding stone steps, across castle bridges, into the armored chambers of a man who refused to bow to anyone. A man who shattered centuries of tradition with fire, fear, and strategy sharp as any blade. A man who could command thousands, yet trusted almost no one. This is the story of Oda Nobunaga, a warlord, a visionary, a tyrant, and a storm wrapped in silk and steel. But before he became the most feared man in Japan, he was just a boy, and his story begins in a place far from glory, the wild child of Owari. It is 1534, in the province of Owari, part of modern-day Aichi Prefecture. A boy is born into the Oda clan, a minor branch of a once noble family. His name is Nobunaga. The Oda were not rich, not admired. They controlled a few castles and rice fields, but little else. They were vassals, subordinates. Their territory was divided between rival clans, and Nobunaga was not the son his father expected. As a child, he was wild, unpredictable. He wore rough clothes, ran through the streets, played with farmers' children. He practiced with wooden swords, but would toss them aside mid-duel to chase birds. Servants whispered about him. They called him the Fool of Owari. At his father's funeral, he reportedly threw ceremonial incense across the temple floor in a fit of defiance. Priests gasped, samurai frowned. He was not the image of a lord, but he remembered every frown, a chessboard divided by war. Japan in Nobunaga's youth was not a country. It was a battlefield of provinces. Over 200 warlords vied for power. Castles rose like mushrooms after rain, only to be burned the next season. Alliances shifted with the wind. The emperor existed, but had no power. The Ashikaga shogunate ruled in name only. Real power belonged to those with armies. And Nobunaga, he watched and waited. The first move, claiming Inuyama. At just 18, Nobunaga made his move. He gathered a ragged band of loyal men and stormed Inuyama Castle, a stronghold that belonged to one of his relatives. The attack was fast, bold, and brutal. He didn't wait for permission. He didn't wait for allies. He took the castle by force, and in doing so, declared himself not a child, but a contender. This was how Oda Nobunaga would rise, not through bloodlines, but through shock, speed, and fire. The strange strategy of terror and reward. Most lords rewarded loyalty. Nobunaga rewarded results. He gave land to foot soldiers who impressed him. He replaced lazy generals with peasants who had grit. He allowed merchants to trade freely and protected roads with armed patrols. But he also burned entire villages if they resisted. In 1560, Nobunaga faced Imagawa Yoshimoto, a powerful warlord leading 25,000 men into Owari. Nobunaga had just 2,000 soldiers. The odds were hopeless. Yet at Okehazama, he attacked during a thunderstorm. Imagawa's men were drinking, relaxing, unprepared. Nobunaga struck like lightning. Imagawa was beheaded, his army shattered. It was the first time Japan understood what Nobunaga was capable of. A new vision, no more old ways. Nobunaga believed the samurai code was outdated. He replaced the old warrior class with ashigaru, foot soldiers trained in formations. He welcomed Portuguese traders, studied European firearms, and commissioned muskets in mass, while other warlords clung to swords and horses. Nobunaga trained his men in gunpowder warfare. He saw the future, and it smelled like sulfur. Honnoji Temple, the strange beginning of the end. By 1582, Nobunaga had conquered most of central Japan, but victory made him enemies, not just outside his circle, but within it. One of his generals, Akechi Mitsuhide, had grown resentful. Some say Nobunaga mocked him in front of others. Others say Mitsuhide feared he'd be replaced. Whatever the reason, one quiet morning, as Nobunaga rested at Honnoji Temple in Kyoto, Mitsuhide struck. The temple was surrounded. Nobunaga, caught off guard, realized there was no escape. He performed seppuku, ritual suicide, and the man who nearly unified Japan died in smoke and silence. What he left behind, Oda Nobunaga never saw the country unified. That task fell to his allies, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, and later Tokugawa Ieyasu. But Nobunaga changed everything. He broke the power of the old Buddhist warrior monks. He opened Japan to foreign technology. He used terror not as a weapon, but as a message. He was ruthless, but he believed the age of lords lounging in castles was over. In its place, he built something new, something sharper, a Japan that would rise from centuries of chaos. Soft night reflection. Now the wind returns. The trees whisper once again. We step back from the firelit halls of war, the screams of betrayal, the thunder of musket fire, and you hear only the faint ringing of a temple bell in the distance. Oda Nobunaga lived fast, ruled hard, and died by the very code he bent. Some saw a tyrant, others a genius, but all agreed, once he appeared, Japan could never return to what it was before. Rest now. The fires of ambition have faded, and in their place, only embers remain. Not all samurai died in battle. Some died of old age. Some fell to betrayal. Others were cut down in moments so swift the blade never left its sheath. But almost all of them, whether feared, forgotten, or honored, faced the same question in death. What do you do with a warrior's sword when the warrior no longer needs it? That's the mystery we explore tonight. Not a battlefield tale, but a quieter one, full of reference, ritual, and riddles that still puzzle historians today. The katana, not just a weapon. To understand the mystery of the missing katanas, we must begin with their meaning. A katana was more than a weapon. It was a soul. The blade was a man's honor. It lived by his side, slept beside him, died with him. Swordsmiths didn't just forge steel. They folded spirit into form. Each blade could take months to craft, layer after layer, hammered and heated, quenched and polished, until it gleamed with its own identity. Names were carved into the tang. Spiritual rituals were held upon completion. Some believed the sword had a kami, a divine spirit within it. To a samurai, to lose his sword was shame. To die with it intact was purity. The burial dilemma. Yet across centuries, we find something strange. Thousands of samurai graves have been uncovered in Japan, especially from the Sengoku period, and in most of them, the katana is missing. No sword, no fragments, no trace. Why? These men lived and died by the blade. Why were so few swords buried with them? Was it ritual, or robbery, or something else entirely? Case study: the Kyoto Field Tomb. In the outskirts of Kyoto, a 15th century warrior was buried in full armor. His name remains unknown. His helmet survived, an elegant iron kabuto with the deer antler crests. His chest plate had intricate family crests still visible under centuries of dirt. But the katana, gone. Yet strangely, traces of lacquered scabbard pieces were found at his side. Historians believe the sword may have been buried, but removed later. Or it was buried only symbolically, using the sheath, not the blade. This opens the door to a ritual belief. The sword didn't need to die. The man did. The ritual of separation. In some cases, families chose to preserve the katana even after death. It was passed down to sons or donated to temples. A blade with legacy was too valuable, spiritually and materially, to bury. Others followed a practice known as shinzen katana no tokusho, a kind of ritual deactivation of the sword's spirit. The blade was purified, wrapped in sacred paper, and stored in shrines, never to be used again. In this way, the sword became a relic, no longer a tool of blood, theft, and the grave robbers. Another darker truth: grave robbing was real. In times of war and famine, even honored graves were disturbed. A katana, especially one with a famous smith's mark, could be sold for a fortune. Bandits, rival clans, and desperate villagers would dig quietly under moonlight. Many burial records from the Edo period mention graves being found emptied of blade. Some warriors were buried with fake swords, wooden replicas painted to resemble steel, a form of spiritual protection without the material risk. The symbolic burial. Others practiced symbolic burial. Instead of interring the sword, they buried a small piece of the blade's iron filing, a charcoal rubbing of the sword's hamen, wave pattern, a miniature sword talisman carved in wood, or a poem etched into stone describing the blade. These symbolized the katana's presence, without wasting a priceless heirloom. The tale of the hidden blade. Let me tell you a legend whispered among swordsmiths. Long ago, a samurai named Hojo Renjiro was known for his unbreakable loyalty. He fought in 5 battles, survived 2 sieges, and refused every offer to defect. When he died, his lord was so moved that he buried Renjiro with his katana despite tradition. But soon after, the lord's household fell into ruin. Crops failed, sons died young, dreams turned sour. The local priest said, "The blade still thirsts." A ritual was arranged. They opened Renjiro's grave, removed the blade, purified it with white rice and salt water, and donated it to a temple. Within a year, the family's fortune reversed. The story became a warning. A katana buried is a spirit sealed, sometimes dangerously so. Swords as offerings to gods. Some swords were never meant for human hands. They were forged as shrine offerings called hoken. These sacred swords were buried beneath temple floors, enshrined with Buddhist sutras, or placed within Shinto shrine altars as gifts to the gods. They were made perfect, then hidden forever. In 1939, during renovations of Atsuta Shrine, a bundle of ancient swords was found beneath the main hall. One of them dated back to the 12th century. It had no bloodstains. It had never been sharpened. It was a sword for the heavens, not for men. The samurai's final moment, when a samurai sensed his death approaching, whether by illness or defeat, he would sometimes perform a final act. He would place his katana on a red silk cloth, bow to it 3 times, and whisper a final poem, a jisei, into the air. Then he would leave the sword behind. In some cases, that sword was carried by his most trusted retainer, someone who vowed never to use it. In others, it was placed in a sealed wooden box hidden from future hands, marked with only one kanji, mu, emptiness, modern discoveries, and lost blades. Even today, in Japan's countryside, farmers sometimes find traces of blades buried deep in soil, a fragment of a suka handle, a rusted tang with a barely visible smith's mark, scabbard fittings inside collapsed, mounds once thought to be natural hills. And yet, for every blade recovered, there are hundreds more that vanished. Where did they go? Sold, melted, hidden forever, or are they still waiting, silent beneath earth and time, guarding the stories of men long forgotten? Nightfall among the graves. Let us return to the present. The wind slows. Crickets hum. A fog rolls softly across the temple cemetery. Stone lanterns lean slightly, their edges worn by centuries. Family crests are faded, names unreadable, but you know who they were. Samurai, lords, servants, brothers, and somewhere in one of those graves lies a lacquered scabbard, empty, its blade taken, or never there, its spirit, perhaps, still hovering in silence. The sword was not just steel, it was memory, and memory has a way of never staying buried for long. Sleep now in the soft shadow of cherry trees. The blade is sheathed, and the spirits are at peace. For tonight, we've wandered the muddy fields of the peasant, stood among the ashes of ambition with Nobunaga, knelt beside the graves of warriors whose swords vanished into mystery. And now we step into polished floors, lacquered wood, and quiet shadows. This is no battlefield, no granary, no funeral. This is a house of rank. Tonight we follow the rhythm of a single day in the life of a noble samurai family. Not a shogun, not a daimyo, but someone just beneath them, wealthy, well-connected, and responsible for land, law, and loyalty. Their life may seem easy compared to the farmers, but inside these walls, every gesture is watched, every word is weighted. Disgrace can come as swiftly here as on any battlefield. The house is large, but not ostentatious. 3 wings connected by covered walkways. Sliding doors made of shoji paper that glow like lanterns in the morning sun. Tatami floors woven tightly, smelling of dry grass and sandalwood. A small koi pond sits in the inner courtyard. One maple tree turns red at its edges. Autumn is near. The family crest, or mon, is painted on the gate curtain. 2 circles intersecting. It marks the household of Lord Kanda Hizamori, a mid-ranking samurai official under the Tokugawa shogunate. He is in his mid-40s, disciplined, careful, polite in public, private in thought. His wife, Lady Chiyo, is quiet, observant, and trained in calligraphy and incense ceremonies. They have 3 children. A boy, Takashi, age 14, training to inherit his father's title. A daughter, Sayo, age 11, already engaged to a merchant's son. A toddler son, Haruki, who toddles through corridors like a tiny windstorm. Dawn. Samurai wakes. The first light filters in through the eastern screens. Lord Hizamori is already awake. His servant has lit the charcoal brazier and boiled water for tea. There is no alarm, no rooster. He rises at the same hour every morning, the 6th bell. He kneels before the family altar, offers a stick of incense, whispers his father's name, then opens a small wooden box. Inside, a letter from years ago, a note of thanks from the daimyo himself. It reminds him who he is. Breakfast Lady Chiyo oversees the kitchen from a distance. Women of status do not cook, but direct. Breakfast is rice, grilled fish, miso soup, and pickled plums. The children eat in silence. Only the sound of bowls, chopsticks, and soft movement. Takashi sits straight. He must. They are watched by 3 house attendants. Every habit matters. How he holds his cup, how he bows, Sayo, though young, already folds her napkin precisely. Lady Chio smiles slightly. The girl is being groomed not just for marriage, but for grace. The Lord's duties. Lord Hizamori dresses in formal robes, layers of indigo and black, with the clan crest on his back. He visits the record hall, where 3 clerks await. He reviews land reports, signs tax documents, and writes letters to other retainers. By mid-morning he receives a local magistrate who seeks guidance on a border dispute. Hizamori listens for 20 minutes, speaks only 4 sentences. His silence is a tool, honed like a sword. Behind the scenes, Lady Chio's role. While her husband governs, Lady Chio trains the household staff. She teaches 2 girls the art of folding letters, known as origata, not just folding paper but sending unspoken messages through crease and ink. She checks the layout for tomorrow's poetry gathering, ensures that fresh chrysanthemums will be placed near the veranda. At noon, she walks the garden path barefoot. It is her time of reflection. Once a week, she lights incense, writes poetry, and prays alone to Canon, the goddess of compassion. The children Takashi trains with a wooden sword under the family retainer, Genzo. Each strike must be precise, each movement rooted in old teachings, courage, loyalty, silence. Later, he copies Buddhist scriptures by hand, a task meant to build patience and reverence. Sayo studies music, plucking the koto. She will perform at New Year for their guests. Haruki naps in his nursemaid's arms, a cloth doll resting on his chest. Servants and structure. The household has 17 servants, male guards and messengers, female attendants for cooks and kitchen workers, scribes, tea master, sword, caretaker, nursemaid. Each knows their station. Each moves through hallways like ripples in a still pond, present but quiet. The household is not just a home. It is an extension of Lord Hizamori's honor. Tea and strategy. At dusk, the tea master prepares the chaji, a formal tea gathering. The guests, 2 neighboring samurai lords. They kneel on tatami in silence. The room smells of roasted matcha and pine ash. Hizamori pours tea with slow precision, each gesture choreographed. Nothing is said outright, but alliances are affirmed. After tea, a small gift exchange, a silk scroll of poetry from Hizamori, and a rare incense blend from his guest. This is diplomacy, performed with cups and bows. Evening, a family reunited. The family gathers for supper. Takashi speaks softly about his training. Sayo shares a new poem. Lady Chio corrects a single kanji with a graceful smile. Later, Lord Hizamori removes his outer robes and walks alone to the edge of the koi pond. He stares into the water, where red and white fish glide in silence. He is not thinking of taxes. He is not thinking of power. He is remembering the first time he drew his sword, a battlefield in his youth, the smell of sweat and steel, a man he cut down, still young, like his son. He watches the koi vanish into shadow. The final ritual. Nightfall. Before bed, the family kneels before the shrine once more. A single candle flickers. Lady Chio chants softly. Takashi bows with closed eyes. Outside, the wind brushes through bamboo. A guard quietly patrols the perimeter. Inside, peace, but not laziness. Peace built from vigilance, from discipline, from choices measured and restrained. Not everyone in Japan wields a sword, but in this house, honor is worn like armor. In every movement, the noble samurai does not raise his voice. He does not flaunt his strength. He governs with silence and protects with presence. Now, the house is dark, the lanterns are out, the floors are swept, and the only sound is the whisper of silk robes as sleep descends. Let go of the day, let the koi drift, let the household rest. We close the paper screens now. Until next time, the soft end of the sword. The night is deepened now. The fields are quiet. The castles have gone dark. Even the koi have slowed their drifting. You've traveled far, through villages and war camps, through ancient rituals and lantern-lit homes, through hardship, ambition, mystery, and grace. You felt the damp chill of morning rice paddies, heard the rustle of straw sandals in muddy paths, witnessed a young boy become the most feared man in Japan, and stood among the graves of warriors whose blades vanished into legend. Then, like a shadow passing over moonlit tatami, you slipped into a home of silence and status, where even a whisper carried weight, and every gesture told the story of duty, balance, and restraint. Tonight, we saw the full arc of feudal life, from the bottom of the social order to the very peak of quiet authority, a world of layers. Feudal Japan was a land of layers, not just in hierarchy, but in meaning, in discipline, in silence. To be a peasant was to live each day as a test of obedience, of endurance, of silence in the face of power. To be a lord was to carry another weight, the burden of reputation, the fear of disgrace, the delicate dance of keeping peace while holding the sword. Even the samurai's blade, sharp as legend, was just one piece of a larger code, one shaped by generations of ritual, law, and memory. The unseen stories. The world remembers the loud, the victorious, the violent, the bold. But tonight, we gave our attention to the unseen, to the rice farmer who never wrote his name, to the wife who rose before the sun to stretch millet gruel across 7 mouths, to the child whose only toy was a bamboo flute carved from workday scraps. We listened for the quieter truths, the kind history often skips over in its hunger for heroes. Yet these are the truths that endure, that remind us that the foundation of every empire rests on ordinary lives, and that sometimes the deepest strength lies not in resistance, but in resilience. The blade and the breath across every segment tonight, one symbol followed us, the sword, not always drawn, not always used, but always present. For the peasant it was a fear, for the lord a responsibility, for the dead a question. We saw how blades were hidden, buried, offered to gods, or left behind, and how every sword, whether in a hand or on an altar, carried the memory of the man who once wore it. But even more enduring than the sword was the breath, the quiet breath of daily labor, the long breath before a battle, the final breath in front of a family shrine. Tonight, you walked with those breaths, and now you can let go of your own, softly, slowly, drifting back. Now, the story is ending. The candle has burned low. The garden lantern flickers. The paper screens slide closed. Somewhere in the past, a farmer lies down beside his daughter, stomach empty but spirit full. A lord kneels at a shrine, eyes closed in memory. A sword sits untouched in a cedar box, waiting for no one. And you're still with them, not just as a listener, but as a witness. You have crossed centuries tonight, and though the story ends, you're welcome to return here whenever your mind grows noisy or your day too sharp. This world will be waiting, with folded paper walls, with drifting koi, with soil and silence, and moonlight on armor. So now, breathe deeply. Let your body rest like a scroll gently rolled after reading. Let your thoughts melt like wax from an old temple candle. You've heard the untold history. You've seen the world through a peasant's eyes, through a general's fire, through a child's nap, and through the echo of a missing blade. Sleep now, in the safety of distance, in the softness of knowing. Your journey is complete, and the world you've visited tonight is sleeping too. Good night, traveler, and thank you for walking with us.